A child can drown in only 20 seconds and in only 30 centimetres of water. So it can be very, very fast and in very shallow water.
What are the preventive strategies you think, or top 3 or top 1 or top 2 that will work or is working to stop beach drowning?
When we teach one person, they're very likely to go home and share that with their family, the people they live with, or even their community. Even if you're just in ankle deep water, the rip can sweep you off your feet and drag you into very, very deep water in just 1 or 2 minutes.
Have you worked with a specific Nepali community or Nepalese community organization? Are you aware of any of the organization which you have really worked in Victoria? सम्पूर्ण दर्शक र श्रोताहरूलाई यहाँ वेलकम गर्न चाहन्छु। मेरो नाम विराट, आज म एउटा होस्ट हो। हामीसँग आज गेस्ट हुनुहुन्छ ब्लेयर मोर्टन। Blair Morton is working as a diversity and inclusive officer at Brotherhood of St. Lawrence. We have invited him today through Zoom meeting in order to talk about the different various matters that is mainly focused on drowning deaths, strategies and things like that. So let's proceed. Blair, thank you for coming in today through Zoom, and thank you for allowing us to have this time with you. I know how busy you are. Can you please provide a brief description of your role and what your role entails?
Thanks, Brad. No, pleasure to come on board. So I work for Lifesaving Victoria. Lifesaving Victoria is the peak water safety body in Victoria and an emergency service. At Lifesaving Victoria, or LSV, I might say throughout today, we say LSV. I'm a diversity and inclusion coordinator. So our team runs programs and delivers water safety information for mostly culturally and linguistically diverse Victorians, but also for people living with a disability and seniors as well.
That's really good. And what your role entails, because I can see there's a diversity and inclusive officer, and in an organization such as Lifesaving Victoria, what is the significance of having that role?
Sure. So like I say, most of the work that we do is outreach work. So every year we deliver programs, water safety programs, both excursions and incursions, CPR sessions, pool programs and swimming lessons. We see this year we're on track to see around 28,000 people this year and deliver programs and water safety information for all those people.
Thank you, Blair. Now, when I was looking at the internet, I found a different organization and I could not find who is who in the Jew kind of stuff, like Surf Life Saving.
Yeah, it's a bit complicated.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Surf Life Saving Victoria, Life Saving Victoria, Rural Life Saving. Can you please provide a bit of description about how they work? Is it hand-to-hand? What are the different entities?
Yeah, great question. Yeah. So in every other state in Australia, there's 2 organisations. There's Royal Lifesaving and there's Surf Lifesaving in every other state, and they're separate. In Victoria, Royal Lifesaving Victoria and Surf Lifesaving Victoria merged in 2002 to create just Lifesaving Victoria. So the quick sort of rule is Royal Lifesaving focuses on pools and inland waterways, whereas Surf Lifesaving focuses on the beach. But it's a good thing in Victoria we're merged and we're just Lifesaving Victoria. But we have very strong links with the national body at Royal Lifesaving Australia and at Surf Lifesaving Australia and at all of our state bodies as well. So we all work very closely together.
Okay. Blair, for the podcast session today, I just want to request you, what are the stats you have got for this summer, like especially with drowning deaths or preventable deaths or the programs which you have been doing?
So firstly, I'll touch on the drowning deaths. So this summer, we've recorded the highest number of lives lost to drowning in any summer period since records began, which is alarming and is very worrying. So this summer, there were 27 fatal drowning incidents. So that's from the 1st of December to the 29th of February, that's summer. There were 27 people died or drowned in the water. So that's 7 more than the 5-year average and 9 more than the 10-year average. Like I say, it's the highest number ever recorded. So it's an alarming number, and we're working very hard to try and curb those numbers.
Do you have a figure of with a male participant, female participant, kids drowning too? Is that all included in there?
Look, it is all included in there. Some of the information I don't have at hand necessarily off the top of my head. I can tell you that the average age of all the people that have drowned this year was 44, and 81% of the people who drowned were male, while 19 were female. And I suppose importantly for our chat, of the 42 people who've drowned all year, so not just summer, but all year, 31% of them were reportedly from multicultural communities. So that's pretty typical, that breakdown. It's mostly men who drown. They're much more overrepresented. And people from a cold community are highly represented in drowning numbers, unfortunately, as well.
When we talk about this drowning death, there has been a couple of incidents which have rattled every Australians to their core. The incident about a Gold Coast pool recently 2 weeks ago, and prior to that, there was an incident in Phillip Island in Victoria where the same 4 family members from the same family lost their life. Because you have worked in the forefront, can you please explain what is the impact of drowning in the community? Because I know that particular person and the family are already impacted, but what is its impact in the whole community?
Oh yeah, look, it's huge. I mean, every drowning death is a tragedy. No one visits the water expecting to drown, so they're all preventable. They're all accidents, so no one is prepared for them, I suppose. So they're particularly tragic deaths, especially when we talk about them all being preventable. But obviously they send shockwaves through communities, through families, through networks, and also through the first responders. So the lifesavers and the lifeguards who are there, bystanders who might help and rescue people and do CPR and things like this. This is lifelong memories about what's happened. And like you say, obviously, when it's affecting particular communities and families, it's a tragic and traumatic event for them. So, like I say, all drowning is preventable, and they're tragedies each time they happen.
Okay. And what a life-saving Victoria community-focused activity? You have touched a bit previously, but what are the activity you are really focusing on this summer? Knowing the numbers are really high.
So, firstly, our biggest program, our flagship program that we do in my team is something called a beach program. So we get a group of people, whether they be from a community, maybe a church or an English language school or a university, a sporting club maybe, to come down to the beach, and we do a detailed beach program. So everyone who comes down gets in the water. It's specifically designed for people with very low or no swimming ability. We're in the water, we're learning how to recreate, but also importantly, how to do some rescue techniques and how to enjoy the water safely. Also on those beach programs, we teach people about water safety information like swimming between the flags, the role of lifeguards, and how a RIP works. Also, so we do that during summer. So our season is just finished after summer. So throughout the winter and cooler months, we focus on our classroom activities. So we do a program called Meet a Lifeguard, where members of our team come and visit community organisations, like I mentioned, whether they're schools, community groups or universities. And we're all lifeguards as well, and we've all got extra education in teaching people from a cold background. So we teach them about water safety and some of those really important tips about being safe. Also, we do a CPR program, an introduction to CPR. And then we do some programs as well in the swimming pool. And at a very, very limited amount, we are able to do some swimming lesson programs with some groups as well. That's highly sought after, and the waiting list is extremely long. But we would love it if every Victorian could learn to swim. But the reality is just there's not enough pools and not enough teachers and not enough people. So, swimming lessons are also part of the suite of activities that we deliver to over 28,000 people this financial year.
Okay. And how can the organization tag to that program? How the referral works? Do you go and approach to the called community or the called community leaders or people from a different background, or can they come and approach you? Is there a referral form they can do? Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah. So look, both ways really. We've got a database of around 400, gatekeepers, we call them, who are people that know these communities and have links. So we work through a network of people every year. We have lots of repeat business with people with a new community, with the same community, but new members come time and time again. But yeah, if anyone out there is listening and they're a part of a club or a group who's interested, then yeah, they can always get in touch with my team. I can give you our email address and you can leave it on the podcast link if you like, so that people can, send us an email, reach out. And we're always trying to see as many people as possible all over Victoria. Yeah. We mostly focus on metropolitan Melbourne because that's where most people live and that's where we can deliver most of our programs, but we do go regionally as well. Yep. But yeah, we'd be more than happy for anyone listening who's interested to get in touch.
Thank you, Blair. Now, what do you think is the message is not going through, or it's not that what you think, there is a whole body who is very committed to reduce the drowning deaths, which is preventable. And there is also the whole community, and there is every summer there is an incident about the best swimmer in the town, or people from the cult community having a drowning deaths. So what is not going through, especially talking about the cult community or Nepalese community?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's as such messages not getting through. Perhaps messages may not be understood for people who are new to Victoria and Australia. And that's understandable, especially people that have maybe lived in landlocked countries or places with no access to water. Some of the things that people who've lived in Australia their whole life might take for granted, that stuff is not common knowledge all around the world. So it's not common sense. So things that we see a lot that people don't know when they arrive in Australia is a very simple thing like swimming between the red and yellow flags. So the red and yellow flags are displayed by lifeguards or lifesavers at the beach when they're on patrol, and that shows people the safe part of the beach to swim. That's a really important thing. If you swim between the flags, you'll always be safe. Other things are like, for example, how a rip works, or even what a rip is. Things like how a tide might affect your visit to the beach. Also the wind and the weather, and how impactful those things like wind, weather and tides can be day to day, hour to hour. People might take that for granted if they've lived in Australia their whole life, but people who are new, who don't know lots about water, may not understand these things and might kind of accidentally put themselves in harm's way because they just don't know what they don't know. Another point that I will touch on is anecdotally, we are seeing more incidents in some remote or isolated beauty spots, we'll call them, where people are trying to capture a perfect shot for social media. Some of these locations, like I said, are quite remote. They're very isolated. There's often very little to no phone reception. And it will take lifeguards and emergency services a long time to get there if there's an issue. So these places are wildly dangerous if anyone enters the water, especially if they have low swimming ability. So that is a problem area that we're seeing pop up more now, is people visiting these remote, isolated locations where it's not safe and there's no emergency response available quickly.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because I was about to completely forgot. There's a beach in Mornington Peninsula, I think beach 16, where it has got more likes in TikTok, and people are just going there just to have that picturesque view and also going for a swim. That's one of the example, isn't it? Because that's a perfect example. So there are others, and the Mornington Peninsula is a hotspot, but that's a perfect example. So our advice to people, so firstly, we do want people to enjoy the water. Victoria's got beautiful waterways, and we know that people who visit and come to live in Victoria often choose to, and this is part of the reason, is because it's a beautiful place to live. So we want people to enjoy the water, but the advice is to do it safely. So if you're planning a trip to somewhere like the Mornington Peninsula, you need to do some research before you go. The best way to do it, we have an app and a website which is called Beach Safe. Beach Safe is the name of the app, or beachsafe.org.au is the name of the website. Now, when you're on Beach Safe, you can put the name of any beach in Australia. So, for example, on the Mornington Peninsula, you might put Sorrento. You can find the right place on the map, click Sorrento Beach, and it takes you to some really thorough, in-depth information about that specific location. So
It'll give you a danger rating first that tells you between 1 and 10 how dangerous the beach is. It will also tell you if and when there are lifeguards working, what time there will be patrols, so you know when the flags will be up. It also gives you information about if you want to go surfing or fishing and what the beach is like. But I would really recommend before people go to use Beach Safe to check that beach on Beach Safe. And if there are things like rough surf, strong rips and a high danger rating, really maybe reevaluate your visit to that location, because that's really not a safe place for someone who has low swimming ability to be on their own, because these are treacherous places where people can be swept off the sand and off rocks in just a matter of seconds. So, yeah, do your research, and Beach Safe's the best way to do that before you go.
Cool, thank you. Now, I'm going to put you to test, okay?
Okay.
How do you explain rip and tide? Like, the thing is, we have watched a lot of videos, and you're a lifeguard yourself. Is that what you said? Like, yeah. How do you explain to a completely, a new individual who have just dropped in Australia? Like, how do you explain that? How does rip work?
Sure thing. No, great question, Birat. So first, I'll also send you a link to some really useful videos, which also are translated, that you can list in the podcast notes. But because the videos are visually really helpful, if you see the rip working in these videos, it really clicks, I think. But to explain it, I'll do my best for a couple of minutes, right? So if you imagine you're standing on a beach, you can see waves breaking on the beach. Waves bring water from the deep sea up onto the sand. And you can imagine if you're standing on a beach, there's wave after wave after wave, bringing more and more water up onto the sand. Now, when all of that water gets to the sand, the water cannot just stop. Water is very heavy and water is always moving. So when all of this water from the waves comes to the sand, it needs to find a way to get home, or it needs to find a way to get back out to sea. So what happens is the water flows together into deeper channels. And these deeper channels are what we call rips or rip currents. And in the rip, the water is flowing out to sea, and it's very, very strong. It's something like a river flowing from the sand out into the deep water. And they can sweep people, even if you're just in ankle deep water, the rip can sweep you off your feet and drag you into very, very deep water in just 1 or 2 minutes. And that's why rips are so dangerous. Some of the things you can look for is deeper, darker, discoloured water. Maybe you can see a rippled surface surrounded by smooth waters. You might see some foamy, discoloured water flowing out beyond the waves. But the biggest sign of a rip is deeper, darker water surrounded by white waves. That's sometimes how you can see a rip. But look, Birat, that's a very short 1-minute explanation. So people are aware of rips, but as a lifeguard, it's years of training and learning, because all rips are different. They all work differently. And while we'd love it to be really easy for everyone to just go, bang, there's the rip, sometimes it's not that easy. So that's why you rely on the lifeguards to put the red and yellow flags in the safe place where there's no rips at the beach.
Okay, thank you. That was well explained, actually.
Okay, I'm glad. Thank you.
For every fatal drowning, there are 3 non-fatal drowning incidents, right? So most of that came out of the Australian Water Safety Strategy 2013, and I just got that statement from there. We always talk about the drowning deaths are always in the news. But behind that, there is also non-fatal drowning deaths. Would you be able to explain how does that look like? Or, what does that mean? Because...
So this is sort of veering a little bit outside my area of expertise. So this might not be a perfect answer, but it's a really good question. So non-fatal drowning is what it sounds like. It's someone who sort of nearly drowned but is still alive. And the severity of that can be very different. Some people might develop lifelong injuries from non-fatal drowning, whereas some people might kind of make a full recovery. But you're right, for every person who drowns, there are many, many more non-fatal drownings where people have been rescued, whether it's by a lifeguard or a lifesaver, or a member of the public or a family member or something like that. So you're right, we do see the drowning incidents, but sometimes these are just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
And a lot of people are experiencing trouble and being rescued in the water every year. So that's why it's just so important to make sure you're safe.
Okay. Now, what are the positive community changes which you have seen over time? Like, we talk about, I think because there's an uphill battle, it's a continuous battle for you guys to educate the community.
Yep.
But I'm sure there has been some community changes. Would you like to share that with us, please?
Oh, my word. Yeah, thanks, Bharat. So the team that I work in was set up in 2007. So I haven't been here for all of that time, but since then, over 240,000 people in Victoria have been engaged in our programs. So all of those nearly 250,000 people have all gained really valuable in-depth water safety knowledge that they can use to keep themselves safe. But also we know that when we teach one person, they're very likely to go home and share that with their family, the people they live with, or even their community. So that 250,000 people spreads, it's got, tentacles that spread right through communities, and those messages do embed themselves. Also in that time, since 2007, we've helped over 1,000 people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds become trained up in the aquatics industry. So whether that's as a pool lifeguard, a swimming teacher, or a surf lifesaver. And all of those people are great role models for their community. They can deliver the water safety information even more widely. But as I say, they're a role model to all people from all backgrounds, but particularly their community, that they can be involved and that life-saving is a welcoming and good place. One really good particular example of that is the Afghan community in the southeast of Melbourne around Dandenong. So we now have a very, very strong link with that community, and we've trained dozens of people as lifeguards and swimming teachers, etc., from that community, from what was 15 years ago a quite an isolated community that was very new and being settled, but now they're a more settled community, and we have a lot of success stories coming out of that Afghan community in Dandenong.
Well done, Blair. And to your team, that's a very, very big achievement, I guess, with the, yeah.
Thanks, Brad.
Now, I would like to talk about a bit of prevention strategy to stop, child less than 4 years of age to fatal drowning. Like, what are the prevention strategies you guys have been working on or educating on to the community in regards to that? Because that's another area which is, which needs to be addressed. Do you agree?
Yeah. So infants and children under 4 years are obviously very small, and that means they can drown very quickly. So a child can drown in only 20 seconds and in only 30 centimetres of water. So it can be very, very fast and in very shallow water. So children under 5 always need to be within arm's reach at the water. So that means in their parents' or their supervising adults' arms. And under constant supervision. If they're under 10, our recommendation's that they're always under close supervision and again, within arm's reach. But those ages are kind of guidelines, and that's sort of assuming that those children are having some kind of swimming lessons. So if your children or someone listening's children are a little bit older than that, but they might have had less or even no swimming lessons, then they need to be watched even more closely, because just because a child's 12, for example, doesn't necessarily mean they're safer than maybe a person who's younger who's been at swimming lessons. So we urge all parents to enrol their children in swimming lessons. They start for babies who are just a few months old. The earlier, the better, but we are aware too that there is a long backlog and long waiting lists for people to get into swimming lessons. But for children to grow up and enjoy life in Victoria and be able to engage in all aspects of our community, we think that swimming's really important for that. So we really encourage people to get their kids into swimming lessons.
Cool, thank you. And I think we have touched this in the previous question, but I just wanted to ask clearly, what are the preventive strategies you think, or top 3 or top 1 or top 2 that will work or is working to stop beach drowning? So
the first one is to always swim between the red and yellow flags. That is the best way to keep yourself safe. If you're swimming between the red and yellow flags, the lifeguards can see you, they can save you, you will be okay. You will be very safe doing that. You can find when the red and yellow flags are displayed using the Beach Safe app or beachsafe.org.au. The second thing to always do is always visit the water with your friends, never go alone. Always have your friends nearby in case you need help, or if they need help, you can help each other. Always read the signs before you go to the water. When you arrive, take the time to check the signs quickly. Always check the weather. When the weather changes, the water changes very dramatically. So check the weather before you go, and check the weather for where you're going. If you live in Melbourne and you're going to the Mornington Peninsula, check the weather for the Mornington Peninsula. One more thing is to never drink alcohol and go in the water. Many people who've been drinking are overrepresented in drowning statistics. And as I mentioned earlier, to learn about rip currents. Rip currents are the number one danger at the beach. They are responsible for more drownings than sharks and crocodiles and everything like that combined. So learn about rips. Like I said, I'll share some videos, learn about those and take some time and some ability to keep yourself safe.
Thank you. Now, I would just like to know, with the Life Saving Victoria, in the examples which you presented, around 1,000 people from the CALT community have been trained to be a aquatic instructor or swimming pool instructor. How do we get into that role? Like, for example, there would be people in the CALT community who really like to contribute to the society too. Is there a way to do voluntarily in your agency, or is there a way to work it out how to be those kind of person, and who do they contact to?
Yeah, good question. So we have some links with some community organisations where lots of people kind of are aware of us, and then there's a clear pathway for them being involved in our programs. But we also do see some individuals, whether they might be at a community group or something where we cross paths. And if they're interested, the main thing that people need to first do is gain a really high level of swimming ability. So to be a beach lifesaver or a pool lifeguard or a swimming teacher, you need to be a really, really quality swimmer. So people first need to often do lessons to learn how to swim really well. And then they can enroll like anyone in Victoria. They can enroll in a pool lifeguard course or a first aid course to start it off. And then so for a handful of individuals who we've known for a really long time, we work then with swimming pools and life-saving clubs to help them lead a pathway that might help them be involved for a long time. But if anyone wants more information, again, with that email that I'll share with you for booking programs, you can contact our team as well. This is something else that our team does. It's our job. So we'd be happy to help point people in the right direction on that as well.
No problem. Now, I think we have got a time our enemy too at the moment. So I just wanted to ask you the last couple of questions. Have you worked with a specific Nepalese community organization? Are you aware of any of the organizations which you have really worked in Victoria? And who are they, and how are you working in coordination with them?
Yeah, good question, Birat. Look, off the top of my head, I don't recall the names of any Nepali communities right now. We do see individuals from Nepal in our, smattered around our groups here and there. But off the top of my head, from a particular community group, I don't recall working with one in the last kind of little while, as I say off the top of my head. But that said, we're very keen to work with people from these communities. So we'd be more than happy to create a relationship and start doing some of these programs. We'd love to.
Yeah, just to let you know, in Victoria, I think the two Nepalese organizations, Nepalese Association of Victoria and NRNA, they are quite exposed and quite powerful in providing or linking with the community. So I'll have a chat. If I may, I'll have a chat and provide your details to them if there is anything they could do.
Yeah, please do.
Cool. And maybe I'm not aware that programs they're already running too, because I might have been making assumptions here. Before you go, Blair, what is the significance of the session like this today? Especially on imparting information to the CALT community.
Yeah, like I said, this information is not common knowledge worldwide. But also it's not complicated information. It's just that people need to learn. So while we do our best to go and see as many people as we possibly can, doing media like this is a really great way of spreading really vital water safety information. So it's a great help to us because it means that everyone listening, while they might not be an expert after this, they've at least picked up some information so they know how to make responsible decisions about keeping themselves and their loved ones safe at the water. So no, it's a real benefit to us, Birat, to get our messages further and wider, especially into newer communities who we may not have great links with already.
Thank you, Blair. I can't thank you enough for your time in the podcast today. This is the busiest time of the year for you with all the educative information you have been doing, but allowing us to help you on our podcast session is truly a place. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that.
My pleasure, Birat. We can come back anytime.
Cool. Saying that, thank you for the listeners and the viewers for listening to our podcast. We are on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and our whole session would be on YouTube. So please provide us feedback, comment, anything which you like us to do in future too. So saying that, we would just like to close the session today. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks.
Are you planning to go abroad for higher studies? Visit Grace International Education and Migration. We know you have lots of queries, and we have the right knowledge and the strength to help you reach your dream university. In the end, what really matters for us is your satisfaction and well-being. Grace International Education and Migration, connecting life and learning.